Welcome to the inaugural
Number one,
very first Endless Season Outdoors podcast. I'm Tyler Mahoney.
I'm Jeff Faulkenberry.
And we're super excited to be sitting down doing this. We have a plan. We're still kind of working through some of the details, but Jeff and I have known each other for almost 10 years now, 8 or 9 years, and we've been working on Truman Lake fishing intel, and there's a need for more outdoor content, especially here locally.
Sure.
Stuff that's really focused on Missouri and the Midwest. And Jeff's done the radio show, the Missouri Outback radio show there for a long time, and we're just going to revive it, but with a new spin under the Endless Season Outdoors name, and really, really looking forward to it. So, Jeff, why don't you fill everybody in what we're thinking about doing here?
Right. So basically, Tyler and I have been talking over a period of time and doing the radio show with Johnny and Linda Everhart, Missouri Outback radio show right here in West Central Missouri for many, many years. I think they did it for something like 27 years. And I'm 40 years old. We didn't do it last year, but I was first on the show when I was 17. So that tells you about how long I was doing that show with those guys. And it was on an FM station and aired all over.
Yeah.
And, we had followers. You guys was following us all the way. We would get emails from troops overseas that listened to our show streaming through the web and stuff like that. And, some things changed and with the station and everything, nothing with the show. Thank God Johnny and Linda are still here plugging along, and I'm sure they're probably going to be on here with us sometime.
Yep.
But, some things changed and the radio station changed, and so people all the time is like, hey man, we missed the show. And Johnny and Linda are busy doing things, and Tyler and I have been friends for a long time, and being outdoors together, that we kind of talked and said, hey, let's do this. From
what I gather, all the feedback I hear is they want to know what Jeff Faulkenberry has to say more so than I, but I'm definitely excited and proud to be part of it and helping communicate about the outdoors, teaching and I guess informing, because that's, there's a lot of news out there that just doesn't get covered. In fact, just a little background about me, doing the Kansas City Star hunting and fishing reports for the last few years. That was a weekly thing. It wasn't ever super in-depth. It was mostly just covering all the lakes in Missouri and Kansas and the occasional story here and there. But the Star, just like many other newspapers, have been cutting back more and more and more and more. And so there's not as many outlets to get that local news information as there were. The Kansas City Star here at the end of 2020 just said, hey, we're done with the fishing report. So, there was an outlet that folks had been following for several years for fishing news on how the bite was in that particular case.
Right.
And so, one of our goals is to not only tell you guys a bunch of hunting and fishing stories and kind of shoot the breeze about all kinds of outdoor topics, but also provide some hopefully current and relevant news about what's going on in our area, and also touch on what might be going on nationally as well if there's something that comes up.
Absolutely. There's a lot of information, that gets overlooked nowadays. I always tell my wife, it's hard to miss anything these days with social media, but there's a lot of things that goes on that goes unnoticed, and things that we want you guys to know about. Whether it's a regulation change, whether it's a limit change, or some kind of new permit you can buy, or a new regulation that would allow you to do something. I was talking to somebody the other day about they didn't know if they wanted to get into this or get into that. They didn't have their hunter's education and didn't realize that you could buy an apprentice permit for up to 2 years. And so stuff like that, we want to make sure that you guys know, and kind of Missouri Outback was always a grassroots show. And there's a lot of great podcasts out there. There's a lot of great television shows out there, radio shows. But I think our mission, and we agree on this, is keep this very, very grassroots. And we're going to bring you guys some really cool stuff, up-to-date information, whether it be with products, whether it be fishing reports, whether it be migration reports, rut movement, we're going to try to flow with an endless season,
right,
and bring it all to you right here on this podcast.
Absolutely. Well, and so with that said, we kind of have a sense of where we're going to take this content for you guys, but we're also in the beginning stages. This could adapt very quickly to change depending on what you guys want to see. So once we get this posted, it's going to go out on our social media accounts and online. We're going to get another website up and running, but it'll definitely be up at TrumanLakeFishingIntel.com and MahoneyOutdoors.com initially. And we're going to take a lot of feedback to see what you guys want us to talk about, what you want us to cover, what stories you want us to tell, and who you want us to have on in the future. So there's a lot of different things that we can do, and we're really open to whatever kind of presents itself as the best opportunity to communicate the most entertaining stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of different avenues that you can take now trying to get this information out there. And this podcast, Truman Lake Fishing Intel is such a super cool subscription to get real-time information on what's happening at Truman Lake. And we're going to take this podcast and kind of broaden that kind of deal. And even we're talking maybe some video down the way. Something to be paying attention to if everything goes the way we plan. And you're going to see some stuff. I promise you will see some stuff and hear about some stuff that you haven't heard about in a long time. And I make you that promise because it's going to be super, super cool.
Yeah. So really looking forward to it. With that said, I mean, I'd like to dive into some real stuff, get into the details. So one of the things that I'd always been interested in, so just growing up in Lee Summit, but traveling to this area for over 20 years now, because my dad, I've always been fortunate, he's had a farm nearby in the Warsaw-Clinton area. I had always heard growing up, these fishing guides, and Faulkenberry was always like kind of the, oh my gosh, just really big name seeing on social media, and I just couldn't believe actually getting a chance to meet you, 8 to 10 years ago, and like it was just one of those things. Like Jeff was almost kind of a celebrity for me to finally meet, and then it happens to be one of our neighbors, and so with that in mind, I want everyone else to know more about you. Just your outdoor background, your experience, what you've been doing as a career down here. But I guess I want to start with just kind of growing up, where you grew up. Was it here in town? Did you kind of gravitate this way? What brought you into the guiding business? And just kind of fill us in your outdoor experience, some of your mentors that got you into it as well.
Sure, man. I grew up, just north of Clinton here. I actually graduated from Pleasant Hill High School. I grew up in East Lynn, local town, and my granddad had built a house out in Tightwad right when the lake had went in. And, down a dirt road that ended in nowhere. It ended at his track.
What was the population on the sign at that time?
I don't even know if there was a sign. It was in the 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want not 1930s. I'm saying the population was in the 30s. I do remember that. But this road went down into the woods, and they started clearing trees, and Grandpa built a really nice house back there, which was my dad's dad. And when the lake went in, my dad and my granddad fishing all the time. And of course me, I started going when I was little bitty, and my dad run beagles. We were huge into running rabbits with beagles. I run coon dogs, growing up. Dad, we were just big on running hounds. And then also my grandfather raised pheasant and quail. We had 8 acres, and about 6 acres of that was all flight pens. And we raised pheasant and quail, and I trained some bird dogs. And I was just always learning something, whether it be fishing, whether it be running beagles, treeing coons, training pointers and Brittany's and short hairs. Just the whole time growing up, that was it, man. I didn't care about working on a car. I didn't care about building anything. I'm not a carpenter. What I cared about was the wildlife. And my dad and my granddad would get so frustrated because they would send me on a project or whatever, whether it be run down to the shop and grab a wrench, and it should take me 3 minutes, and it'd take me 30 because I'd get sidetracked with something. And that was just, I knew, I loved that. And if ever there was a way to make a living, I watched those old guys, the old classics with Bill Dance and Hank Parker and Roland Martin, and all these guys were young when I was a kid, and watching them win Bassmaster Classics and everything. And I thought, that's what you got to do. You got to go win those tournaments. You got to get paid. You got to get paid. And growing up, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Man, I started fishing some bass tournaments and doing this and doing that. And of course, I had a job as well. And I started working for a guy when I was in high school. He had a production facility, and we set up these concerts, like sound and lighting and everything. And he would have people come in for meetings, and I'm 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
And he'd say, Jeff, I got these guys coming in for a meeting, but I have another group of guys that I have a meeting with tomorrow, and I don't have anything for them to do.
Yeah.
He's like, I know you fish down at Truman all the time. Why don't you take these guys fishing?
Right.
And I'll meet with these guys, and then when I'm done with these guys, take them fishing.
Right.
We started doing that. And then those guys would go back to Colorado or Florida or wherever they were from.
Right.
And then they'd call this guy back and say, hey, can that guy that works for you take out my brother-in-law and his wife?
Right.
And so that's 16 years old, and you talk about a 20. Everybody says, well, what do you got to do to start guiding? About a 20-year snowball.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it takes to have a book full of clients. I've been super, super blessed to have a lot of those people coming back for many, many, many years. And now, I book trips out. Here we are in January.
Yeah.
And I'm booked. I think I have a handful of days left in July.
Yeah.
And then and so I'm booking way months ahead of time, just stemming from that.
Right.
20 some years of that snowball effect. But there was a point in time when I said about 12 years ago, I said, I either got to work or guide.
Yeah.
And Mike Everhart, who's gone now, is one of my very, very, very good friends. And I was working for him at the time. He said, dude, you got this. And so I bailed, and here we are.
And you were working up at Everhart's?
Yeah. Well, I actually worked for him. He had a security company.
No, that's right.
I ran all the access control and everything for Arrowhead Stadium and Kauffman Stadium. And I did that and guided in my off time. And then he bought the Everharts back from somebody and built it up. And I got to help take that from the ground up with him. And so, man, for 12 years, it's been every day, endless season, one thing into the other in the outdoors. And great mentors along the way, like I said, my granddad, John Tom, my dad, both gone now. Johnny Everhart and my granddad were very good friends.
So that's what I was going to ask, because I figured when you started talking about the dogs, raising pheasants and quail, there had to be some kind of connection there.
So Johnny and my grandpa met, through the store and everything, and then my dad kind of got Johnny into raising quail. And so that relationship began when I was about 8 years old. Yeah. And so, Johnny's just like another dad or granddad.
Yeah, I was going to say, so... I mean, that's basically like another family member.
Yeah. Both my. He's been a mentor since I was 8 years old, and both my dad and my granddad are gone, and I'm thankful at 76 years old to still have him here.
Yeah, 100%. So Johnny's got some pretty good stories that he's told us in the past. How old were you when you first started hearing some of those stories that maybe it made you? You're like, I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
Probably.
I've been hearing those for a while.
Probably early on.
I've been hearing those for a while.
Yeah.
He's got some doozies. But I'll tell you one thing was when Johnny tells you a story that's an experience, he truly believes that happened.
Yeah.
He truly does. And it may be about Sasquatch, it may be about laser beams, but deep down, he'll tell you he saw it with his own eyes.
I think a great episode for everybody is going to be at some point having him on to tell some of these awesome stories, because they're incredibly captivating. And, you hear him talking about them, you absolutely believe them. Like, it just
100%.
Just the way it is. So kind of cool. So anyway, a little sidebar there. But moral of the story is, you were born and bred to be an outdoorsman and be guiding. Sounds like.
Yep. I was prayed into it. My grandma will tell you.
Yeah.
She's, they're just. That's just what I did. Man.
Yeah.
I'm in high school. I was in the FFA program, which is really super cool because you can get proficiency awards, as I did, in wildlife management.
Okay.
And so that was something. The FFA is a great organization. It's not all about raising cows and chickens.
Yeah.
Actually got to spend my junior summer at MU through a Quail Unlimited program, which is another deal I talked about on the radio show when I was 17. And, you know, that was through FFA and stuff like that, through the wildlife management stuff. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. And first I thought I was going to be a veterinarian and then a game warden and this and that and that and this. And God had a different plan for me. So here I am.
Absolutely. Well, it's panned out pretty dang well, and it's been pretty awesome. I'm glad our paths crossed, because it just kind of watching everybody from afar. Like you, like Brent Frazee up at the Kansas City Star, like he always had a big Sunday edition outdoor section, and growing up in high school and grade school, I'd read that, and I always thought, oh my gosh, this is so cool, this Brent Frazee guy. Yeah. And then I ended up meeting him, and he's just like the most down-to-earth, kind of raunchy, hilarious old guy that just such a great dude, and he helped get me the gig at the Kansas City Star. And it just, like you said, the plan for everything comes into place. I really wish we never would have sold our Warsaw place, because it was just so special and spectacular, but put me in position in the middle of college as I was trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life. And I knew I wanted outdoor communication to be part of it, whether or not it was full-time. And it put me in position to know you and Brent and all these different people that were pretty instrumental in getting me into a position where I felt like I could actually do something a little more fruitful than just write a story here and there. Yeah. Boom, Truman Lake Fishing Intel was born, 8 to 10 years later. So took it a little while, but it's been pretty cool how it's all kind of come to fruition. So
well, it had to go that way with me, because my granddad I spent all my summers, when school would get out in the summer, I'd come down here and we would fish all summer long. Yeah. I'd basically live with my grandparents until school went back in, and then I'd go. But my mom and dad would be down every weekend in the summer. But my granddad, we'd pull up to the boat ramp, and he'd go to get the truck, and I'd be standing over here talking to these guys pulling their boat out or taking their boat in, and, hey, did you guys catch any today? Blah, blah. I'd be in their boat looking at their fish. Right. And I remember my grandpa telling my grandma, like, somebody's going to run off with this kid one of these days. Like, he's not scared to talk to anybody. Right. And he just goes and, just does his own thing. It's like some stranger's going to run off with him. Right. And so then it was like a people person type deal, and now to look back at that, and I travel pre-COVID, all over. They had me come to these shows and do seminars in these different places, and we're leaving this weekend for one of my favorite sports shows in Caruthersville at Grizzly Jig. Really, really super cool show, and I'm so glad it's happening. But I get to talk to all these strange people, that I don't know, clients. A lot of my clients are returns, but I do meet new people all the time, and it's just funny how that stems back to that. Well, he's not scared to talk to anybody. Right. Somebody's going to run off with him someday. Right. And then now here I am. And you talking about this famous thing, man. It's far from famous.
It's just kind of funny. Like, I know what you mean, but like to me, and I know a lot of other people, it's like, oh my gosh, like the chance to get to know Jeff is just a cool thing that you would never imagine. It's a weird deal. Social media has changed it where everybody's a lot more accessible, and like you can be friends with someone on Facebook without really knowing them and follow along. Like, oh my God, they're catching the hell out of fish, and this guy's a freaking legend. But
a guy like me, or a guy like Richard Bowling, or Johnny Everhart, or Brent Frazee, Kenny Kaiser. Those guys, all these guys, and I was fortunate and blessed to be in that part pre-social media. Right. So when social media came along, fortunately for us, it was a household name. Right. And somebody said that. I said, I called to get reservations to take my daughter ice skating for her 17th birthday weekend. It's like some teenage girl, and she was like, "What's the name?" And I told her, and she was like, "Oh, do you know a guy that fishes down blah blah blah?" Like,
yeah, I am that guy. I am that guy.
And then they always ask me, apparently there's a principal at Lee Summit that has the same last name.
Oh, really?
Like, do you know Principal Faulkenberry? Like, no.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, you get that sometimes. Yeah. My grandmother, she thinks it's funny because when she goes to the doctor or whatever, somebody reads her name, "Oh, do you know Jeff?" Yeah. And so they think that's pretty funny. But for me, it's cool, but I'm not.
Everybody knows who you are around here, plain and simple. You run the show around Truman Lake. Now, let me ask you this. So, in the season is very apt for what we're going to be talking about all the time because it's everything, not just fishing. It ties into my next question, which is you also do a bunch of duck guiding. You do some turkey guiding.
Yep.
What's, if you were to compare the fishing to the duck hunting and the turkey hunting, I'm just kind of curious which one is more difficult.
Man, difficulty. I guess it all depends on Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Whether you're fishing or hunting or whatever you're doing, it all depends on Mother Nature. Everybody asks me, what is your absolute favorite of favorites? I would probably say spring turkey hunting is probably my go-to.
Right.
I mean, that's my bread and butter.
Right.
That for me personally.
Yeah.
Now, would I like to guide? Anything where I can put a smile on somebody's face.
Right.
Man. Seeing, people catch the biggest catfish or the biggest crappie or shoot a greenhead or whatever, that's what does it for me. I don't have to catch any fish. I gotta shoot a longbeard.
Right.
At least one.
Yeah. I hear you.
But if I shoot some ducks, fine. If I don't, fine. But taking people, that's where it's at. And if a person, that's a call I get a lot. It's like, how do I get into doing this? You have to have that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how good of a fisherman you are, how good of an outdoorsman you are. If you're gonna guide for a living, it's got to feel better to watch somebody else do it. Right. And so. That's me. That's in a nutshell. I would rather watch you be successful as myself. And it takes a lot. But probably turkey hunting for me. We just finished up duck season, which was a struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah.
There wasn't any food because we had early floods. For the first part of the season, a lot of guys didn't have water, but we got it later and stuff like that. But roller coaster of a season, but for us overall,
pretty good.
It's pretty doggone good.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Good time. And we got a pile of ducks here right now.
Yeah.
Season's over.
When I was driving home down to Joplin yesterday, this is in the South Zone. South Zone was still open, isn't it? Or did it close this weekend?
I think this weekend,
Okay. Regardless, freaking piles of them. And these little,
little road ditch ducks.
Yes. And these little ditches in the cornfields, just loaded, hundreds. And you little SOBs.
Yeah, they're on Truman right now.
Yeah.
I'd say the upper end of Truman is probably holding 50 to 60K mallards right now.
Oh,
it's unreal.
Yeah.
Beautiful, really it is.
So one of my questions was that I was going to ask you was if you had to just pick one the rest of your life, which I know is impossible for a guy like you and me to, one thing to hunt or fish, and that's all you're doing. You're not fishing, you're not hunting anything else. You already said spring turkey's kind of like your favorite thing to go guide for.
Do I get to do that all year long?
Well,
or
I don't know.
Is it like turkey season's still only 3 weeks?
I don't know. No regulations, I would say.
Man.
So it's almost an impossible. So you kind of answered it a little bit. I'd probably go with spring turkey though, if it were me. Even with the limited season, just the excitement around it.
Yeah.
But I had another question following up to where you felt. So there's a couple of questions here.
Okay.
Pick whatever, because I just want to know. I'm just kind of curious.
I'm going to say turkey hunting.
Yeah.
For the most part. Your heart beats different when a bird gobbles at 20 yards.
Yeah.
I'll 100% guarantee you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my follow-up question to what I had asked, which was, what's the most challenging? I want to clarify that with, what do you feel the most pressure on when you're on a guide trip? Waterfowl?
Waterfowl 100%, because there's a lot of variables in fishing. Tons of them that you can't control. But those fish are there somewhere.
Right.
With ducks, it's a migration.
Right.
I mean, if they're not there, they're not there.
Right.
And there's not nothing you can do about
Right.
it. It's not like you have 100 acres and there's deer on that 100 acres.
Right.
Not just those deer pass through at certain times. And, definitely waterfowl.
Yeah.
Definitely waterfowl, just because of migration.
Yeah.
And nothing... And I'm I'm hugely honest, but I tell my guys, before they come, is hey, it's a little bit slow, blah blah. But I never really, very rarely does somebody say, well, we'll hold out, because I get 60 days of duck guiding, and that books up usually a year ahead of time, and they come to hang out and shoot the breeze, have a good time. They know we're going to have fun, ducks or no ducks,
right?
And that's been a huge blessing. But that's probably the most stressful. Yeah. And it's the worst when they're coming. You got a big group, right? And man, we don't have the birds, right? And we haven't had the weather to have the birds, and so that's what's rough. Yeah. With fishing, they're there somewhere.
You can go find them on electronics.
They're always biting somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere they're always biting. Yeah. And you may run out of time that day to find those biting fish, but somewhere they're always biting. Yeah. And so I'd say waterfowl is most stressful. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. I was just curious because for me, I think I've told you, like, I couldn't handle that stress of feeling like I have to, because most people, I assume, they come down, they judge a successful trip on most people.
Straps and stringers. Yep, 100%. And the work that goes into it. Yeah. For a maybe. Right. You know what I mean? A maybe. It's not like you got this farm with all these deer on it, and you go plant a food plot and you put up a tree stand, and you know you're going to see some deer. Right. You're cutting brush, you're spraying, you're pumping, you're doing this, you're covering blinds, your duck gear now is off the charts expensive. So, you got $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 worth of gear and all this stuff, and you hope that they pass through during that 60 days. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So that's stressful. Yeah. Well, and just what you just mentioned is part of what's kind of deterred me from going all in into duck hunting, because I've already got about that much in fishing equipment and about that much in freaking just my own personal deer hunting equipment, let alone the cost of the land. Yeah. Luckily, my dad has taken care of that part, but just like turkeys. Yeah. Your heart beats different when the turkey gobbles at 20. Yep. Your heart beats different when there's 50 mallards backpedaling over the decoys. Yeah. Dogs whining, ready to go. Yeah. And you're just like, all right, boys, let's get them. So throughout the season, I know you had a good season, but over the course of 60 days, I know you've been doing this a lot of years, is there a particular time frame? Is that opening weekend? Is that like, okay, that's the freaking weekend that I love. I'm always guaranteed freaking birds. Like, it's roll the dice. Yep. Or is it, I'm just kind of curious. I want to see your perspective on just your years of experience, when the migration has happened, when you recall having some of the better outings out in the water. This year early was really good. Mm-hmm. Last year early was really good. We're seeing some colder snaps in that October range, and so we're getting some early migrations. But traditionally, usually that week of Thanksgiving, we have a pretty good push, and we'll ride on the. I usually say we ride on those ducks till about through the first week of December. Yep. And then it gets dicey, and then the last, if we can get things to start freezing up, where you're keeping holes open and you've got the only open water, we'll usually bang on whatever's around then. So, what we like is a little trickle. Say every week and a half or so, you get a nice little push on a cold front, and then you bang on those a while, and then you get another nice little push. Keeps those birds fresh, keeps them from getting stale. But usually around Thanksgiving is usually pretty good, and then late season is really good. The last week of December, first week of January. Yeah. So that's just, it's fascinating. And it sounds like this year, again, from someone who doesn't really focus on the duck hunting, it sounded like you usually need a lot of cold weather up north that never quite came to fruition. No, and it didn't until now. Yeah. And now they got it. Now the ducks are here, and that's going to happen. Yeah, that's going to happen, and then there's going to be other years where they push through and you run out of ducks before season's over. You get cold, you freeze up tight, and everything is gone. Yeah, but this year just wasn't one of those years. We had a lot of ducks early. We had weird migrations coming back from the south on big warm-ups. Yeah. And I don't know. It was a good season. It was a good season, but it was an odd season. Right. So when hunting is tough, granted, I don't know, a lot more people with COVID had a chance to get out that didn't normally. But I guess
and I know this could be taboo maybe to talk about and divulge too much stuff, but for the guys that are maybe they've got to focus on public land, they're not going to go book a trip with someone like you. They're not going to go try to get private land access. They're going to stick to public land. I mean, what's some advice that you have for folks that might help them be a little bit more successful down the road, especially in a challenging year like this year where there wasn't water in a lot of those places?
Yeah. We got some water late, just not enough.
Yeah.
It would have made, it obviously would have made more hunting for some more folks.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the public ground around here got a little crowded this year.
Yeah.
And things changing with COVID, Canada closing the borders. Everybody thought, well, all those ducks, going up, waterfowl hunting in Canada now has gotten huge with non-residents. Everybody's going up there and banging ducks and geese. And this year, Canada closed the borders because of COVID. So, there wasn't the non-resident hunters up there. So everybody thought, man, lots more ducks. I didn't really see that there was a lot more than any other year.
Well, is there any thought process to, if the pressure isn't on them up there, maybe they would hang out a little bit longer?
They shot birds a lot later than I've ever seen them shoot up there, but they didn't have the weather also.
Okay.
So, but as for advice on public land hunting, it's gotten huge.
Yeah.
Right? And with the evolution of that, the evolution of social media and podcast and television and everything else.
Yeah.
The main thing, man, is, don't forget your morals, your ethics, and your respect.
Yeah.
Don't be setting up on top of one another, set up downwind from a guy shooting birds on the swing. Duck hunting has strayed a little bit. The traditional guys like Johnny and myself.
Yeah.
I shoot a 20 gauge. He shoots a 20 gauge. We like mallards backpedaling over the decoys.
Right.
Guys say, well, you're not going to have that on public ground. You're not going to get to shoot mallards. If they swing by close enough, you got to shoot them. So they're shooting long range chokes and long range shells and this and that. Well, the only reason that if they swing that it's like that is because everybody's doing it.
Right.
If everybody would get in the right mindset, and say, hey, we're not going to shoot these these birds. We're not going to shoot them way up there. We're not going to. I think that they would.
Not going to sky blast them.
Yeah.
I've watched some pretty hilarious YouTube videos because I've got some buddies that are starting to really get into it. Yeah. And so I've just been kind of just watching from the sidelines and learning more and more about it. And like they'll send in our little group text messages some of these YouTube videos of like guys that are like on public land, they're hunting and they're like videoing another group that's just doing all these everything you just said not to do, they're doing it. Yes. And like they're just like, oh my god, these guys are gonna shoot them. And these birds are like a mile. They are so high.
And there's guys putting this stuff on YouTube that they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
And it's Loserville.
Yeah.
Dude, I wish there was like a CIA, like your buddies that are filming this.
Yeah.
I wish there was like a CIA of undercover waterfowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Where they're like, all right, when they see that, they just go over and just wear them all out.
Right.
just pistol whip everyone out.
Right.
It's like, that's senseless.
Right.
It's not ethical. It's not moral. It's not waterfowl hunting. It's not anything that waterfowl hunting should be.
Right.
It would be just like taking football or basketball or baseball or something traditionally that's been, that everybody knows how the game is played, and then trying to change it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the heritage is starting to slip because of things just like what you'd expect saying.
Yeah, it's pretty wild and something, again, I don't totally understand I can't appreciate as much as you, like, some of these negative things that are occurring. I mean, the one video that they sent where they were sky blasting so high, it was hilarious. I mean, even someone who knows and doesn't know a lot about it, I'm like, what on earth? Yeah. And it was, just kind of crazy.
I hunt some public land.
Yeah.
And, but... you won't see me doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, it's not in me.
Yeah.
I'm better than that.
Right.
I won't ever say I'm better than anything.
Yeah.
But I'm better than that.
The whole point is, I don't know, there's a sporting aspect of it, and you're trying to work that bird in and, like, outsmart the bird. You're, like, that's part of the process, is not just not going for the scraps of birds, but to actually work. It's like calling a turkey in. Like, I do love to spot and stalk turkeys, but just being able to work that bird in full strut into your decoys, there's just a different level of sportsmanship there versus freaking just sky blasting them.
Seeing how far you can shoot.
Right.
And that turkey hunt's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting these guns that are designed to shoot 80, 90, 100 yards. And guys in other states say, well, man, if we see him, we got to shoot him.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to have that. No,
Yeah.
That's because you're all in that mindset.
Right.
Everybody's in that mindset. That bird's been boogered 8 times
Right.
by guys thinking the same thing you're thinking.
Right.
He's been shot at 80, 90 yards. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
It's just what it's come to, man. Everybody's just got to get it's different.
I've been very fortunate in life that my dad used to have a place in Windsor, then sold that place, got the big place in Warsaw, which was a big piece where you could just roam. I mean, from my age of 10 to 22, growing up on a place like that literally you just keep roaming and you're never going to see a fence line all day.
Yeah.
And got very spoiled, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Very lucky, got to experience some really cool stuff. But with COVID this past year, I ventured onto public land, moving down to southwest Missouri with my fiance Sammy, who's from there. I was like, I can't make it up to Clinton. It's a 2.5-hour drive.
Right.
I can't do as much hunting. Kansas opens sooner with a bow, and I started to get in on that public land turkey action over at the Mineland Wildlife Area.
Yeah.
15,000 acres, and it's got a buttload of water on it, and bunch of mined land, strip pits, and I had the place to myself leading up to archery opener. I shot at one and wounded it, and it got away. It was just a non-lethal hit, and literally first hour of my hunt on opening day of archery, and I'm like, this is not happening on public land. Like, literally, we walk into the field, it's a freaking mile-long walk, and I'm carrying a ground blind, camera equipment, chairs, bow. Sammy's carrying some stuff, and we get into the field.
Snacks.
Yeah. And a freaking guy from the KDWPT drives in the middle of the day. We get there at noon, and I'm like, son of a gun, man. Like, what are the chances you drive in on the middle of the day, right in the spot that I'm going to hunt, stops and talks for a while, and then drives around our entire field. He's like, I'm just inspecting to let the farmer know, like, what it's looking like back here. So Sammy and I just were like, okay, whatever, messing around watching freaking videos on the phone, and I was calling every 15, 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I hear a gobble. I'm like, the hell? And I look out, here's this strutter a few hundred yards away. Comes marching in, and I just made a bad shot. And but
Did you get it on film?
yeah, I got the bad shot on film. So that is never released footage. But regardless, so fast forwarding to like some of the lessons on public land. So that was the first. I mean, that was like the only unmolested day that I had of not encountering someone, because it was soon after that shotgun season starts a week later. So I had this place scouted out like no other, and had close encounters. After that day of wounding that one, I had multiple close encounters again with the bow. But the day before shotgun open, I was in there, but no one was. I was in there that night listening, roosting them. No one was there. I'm like, dang, I can't believe it. No one's going to be here tomorrow morning. And I'm like, it was a 45-minute drive from the house. I'm like, I'll get there at 4:30. I'll get there way earlier than I normally would. That'll be fine. Freaking 2 vehicles. I'm like, you are kidding me. And so I talked to the guys, and as soon as I pulled up, they were sitting in their cars still, immediately started getting out like, oh crap, now we got to get in there. Get in here. And I'm like, okay guys, hey, hold on a sec. I want to know where you're going, because there's not a lot of places. Right. And of course they're like, we're going right here. And I'm like, like going right to the spot where they were roosted. I'm like, these guys clearly know. They clearly know the way the birds work around here. But I asked them, like, have you done any scouting? I'm just kind of curious, because I just wanted to know how they knew, because I was the only one in there. Like, no, we haven't been out a single time all year. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. I've been out here for weeks. And needless to say, didn't kill one that day. And it got so pressured so fast that not only was there no parking, I tried to go in by boat along this river. And no one else was doing that, but even getting into these spots that I thought no one could get to, there's freaking people back there. Couldn't believe it. And so I luckily had scouted some wildlife, the waterfowl refuge areas that there's parts of them you can't hunt, but other parts that you can. And I had found this place to the north that I'm not going to mention because I know it's going to be a honey hole, and not a freaking soul was there. And I had been on this bird listening to him in the afternoon at 3:30. And the great thing about Kansas,
hunt
all day. Missouri better get there. That's all I'm saying. But regardless,
I'm not a fan.
Yep. Regardless, second day, I go in and sure as hell, this is a whole story we can get to more towards turkey season. But he was in there and I got him. So not another soul in sight every single time I was on that place. Moral of the story is scouting works wonders. Not everybody has the chance to scout, so develop some kind of network of guys that are willing to share some information. Because what was really cool, so I will say this. I met a kid that was, I'm 29, I think he was 22, 23, and he was parked. I was driving around listening middle of the day on opening day over there, shotgun at the Mineland area, and he was just parked. I started talking to him. We ended up hunting together. We hunted together that next day from the boat, got on birds, and they stayed in touch. And he and I will probably go turkey hunting now.
And that's the super cool thing.
Yeah.
And that's how it should work.
Yeah.
Man. I've duck hunted with guys on public land.
Yeah.
Whiteman Air Force Base isn't too far from here where I live, and I've had guys come walking in, oh, we're sorry, and and we get talking, well, we're stationed at Whiteman, I'm like, come on, jump in, I've hunted with numerous guys there, but then I'm talking about that hunting all day. That's one thing. I mean, it's cool, but I'm not a fan.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan. And we got some things to work on here, and I love Missouri, and it's a great turkey state. Yeah. But we really dropped the ball this year. Yeah. As a higher than me. Right.
In what sense? Do you think we should have not let non-residents
100%.
come in? Yeah.
Every other state shut down.
Right.
You leave yourself so vulnerable.
Right.
We had 2 bad hatches 2 years in a row. We knew this.
Yep.
We watched it happen. We knew the numbers were on the decline. Right. We knew we had to have something that was going to help bring us back, and this was not it. Yeah. We had ample time. I'd talked to some guys, all the other states around said, they were shutting down non-resident for COVID. Yeah. And Missouri didn't follow suit, and they were sorry. Yeah. And they were real sorry. Yeah. The numbers. And, it is what it is, but we dropped the ball.
Supposedly there was a better hatch. It couldn't have been.
I don't doubt that.
Couldn't have been much worse than the last couple of years.
The weather, no. I mean, I think we had a pretty good hatch. Yeah. But it was awful.
I'm with you there, especially on the public land, because there's some parts south of Truman that I try to go scout, and I'll hear birds right before opening day, and then, oh my God, you want to talk about pressure on opening day.
And you leave this open all day long?
Yeah. Whew. Yeah. Yeah, that's the fine line, because I really want all-day hunt. As far as if you want to increase people's interest in the outdoors and increase opportunities, all-day hunting is a no-brainer. Not everybody can hunt on a Monday through Friday, and then they're limited to the weekend, and then, oh, by the way, they only have 5-6 hours to hunt. That's not totally fair to every taxpayer that's all paying the same thing for our conservation land and all that. I'm like, people need to have opportunities. But when it comes to public land, it could be a challenging thing to manage because you don't just have turkey hunters. You've got everyone else that is out there using it for whatever other thing they're doing. But it's just that much pressure, more pressure on the birds, especially if you allow non-residents. So I don't know what the happy medium is there.
And the other part is in our area, we have so much public ground. Yeah. But our game officials don't have any help. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, they've got them spread so thin. Yeah. There's so many people here. There's no way. No way. They can handle all that. Right. Even if they was to say, okay, you can hunt all day except for public or conservation property, you couldn't enforce that. Right. No way. You couldn't enforce that.
I don't know. I'd kill a hell of a lot more birds quickly. I guess that might be an argument against going all day. I'm not saying it's just a slam dunk, but I can tell you, you get on a bird anytime between 11 to 3 and he's gobbling.
Oh, 100%.
You're very likely going to get that bird.
But you can whack them off a tree at 4:30 and
True.
5 o'clock too, or
True.
6:30. You know, I mean,
True.
The bird gobbles 2 or 3 times late in the evening, and then flies up, and you can get under and roll him off the limb pretty easy.
I go back to this simple thought of, you know what? It's a free country, and if I'm a landowner, I ought to be able to hunt all day.
Yeah, but you can't do it like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta. There's a lot of things I do different if I was just hunting my own property.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'd love to hunt all day on my own property.
Right.
I'd love season to be 6 weeks long on my own property.
Right.
But, you have to, that state ground has got to be
It's a whole different...
almost priority.
Yeah.
Really, you have to base stuff around that. If we're going to take in that kind of tourism,
Right.
then that's what we got to regulate.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was actually for the public land. I'm a public land turkey hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I hunt a lot of public land.
Mm-hmm.
And for the public land turkey hunter, Missouri was awful.
Mm-hmm.
Awful. It was so crowded, and I couldn't believe there wasn't a lot more accidents than what there was.
I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I sent you the picture down in... I can't remember the name of the exact spot south of Truman here, but... it was a picture of a truck parked right in front of one of the gates, where it clearly says no parking.
Yeah.
They're from Arkansas or something.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, come on,
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody should have an opportunity to come
Yeah.
here. I mean,
Yeah.
but
just
I
find
don't
it,
know, man. It's rough.
Yeah.
In our area, I'll say that.
I just find it funny, when you drive up on a spot and someone's just parked wrong, or they're just doing something. You're like, God dang it! Quit making public land hunters get the bad name.
And you talk to I talked to some of the MDC, higher ups, and they're like, oh, well, we hunt public land. We didn't see anybody. Well, you're hunting a 30-acre conservation area outside of a suburban area.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Than when you got 200,000 acres of public land out your back door,
Mm-hmm.
and 300,000 people hunting it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I will say this, because the science shows in regards to all-day hunting that there is zero impact. MDC has the data that shows that allowing all-day hunting doesn't change good or bad whether the hatch is any different. So, I mean, MDC is always they're all about the science, is what they say. And, the science says that all-day hunting doesn't do anything. Good, bad, and different. So I find that kind of interesting. I have one buddy that always talks about, his reason for supporting cutting off at 1 p.m. is that, you should just have to do something different other than turkey hunting. You should just be done and go do the other springtime activities, crappie fish, mushroom hunt and crappie fish. And I'm like, whatever. You can... It's, again, going back to my concept, it's a free country. If someone wants to stop at 1 p.m. on their own prerogative,
I look at it this way.
no one's stopping them. They can go do it.
Hunting public land after the first 2 days, you're chasing a boogered bird.
Right.
If you're a turkey hunter at all, you know that boogered birds are
Yeah.
So, if you go to all-day hunting, you double the amount of booger birds.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you only hunt a half a day, guy's only got that much time to screw up 3 different gobblers.
Right.
If he's got all day, he's going to screw up 6.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of my train of thought.
I will say this. I went and checked out the Urich Conservation Area. You'll talk about... That's not a huge piece.
No.
And there was 10 vehicles in the 2 or 3 spots. I'm like, there's no way this little... It's not lit a few hundred acres, whatever it is, but I'm like, there's no way that many people... Someone is going to accidentally shoot a bird here. Because
It's so amazing to me. At 7 o'clock in the morning, all you can hear is hoot tubes and crow calls. And some guy, I mean, just constantly.
I will tell you, one of the best turkey hunting experiences I've ever had in my life, and it's been about 5 or 6 years, and I don't know if it's like that anymore due to the hatch, but in the Ozark National Scenic Riverway down where the Current and the Jack's Fork come together, did a trip down there at the Missouri Outdoor Communicators, and was out with a guy named Billy Smith, and it was middle of the second week, and we had a little jet boat put in right at light, and you'd go down these freaking massive Ozark mountains, you could hear gobbles forever. And I'm pretty intense about turkey hunting. There's no other thoughts. You hunt until 1 until something dies.
Yes.
That we're not leaving. We're not going to do this or that. And he was like, oh, we're just going to do some bass fishing, catch some smallmouth bass. And I'm like, what? That's not what I'm here for, dude. Like, I'm here to kill a turkey, man. But pretty soon we started slamming smallmouth bass, nice ones. So I actually started to kind of forget about the turkeys. But more of the story, over the course of these 2 days, I had opportunities, but I had never heard more gobbles in my life, more turkeys in my life, just floating down this river. And he was such a good dude. He had, in an accident, lost part of his leg, and he was deaf in one ear as well. So he didn't have directional hearing. And but he could call like one of the best turkey callers I'd ever heard. And as soon as we heard one, he couldn't quite pinpoint it, and he was like, I need you to kind of tell me, because I got to turn my head every which way to hear him. And we freaking scaled these mountains, and he called in a bird. He was behind me. It went just a little out of range, but then there was another one that we went up on a super steep mountain that he couldn't make it up. I had to go up and got a shot but missed. But moral of the story is that following day after I missed, we went back to the same spot. Birds were there. It was easily 15 to 20 gobblers that I could hear within a mile on public ground, middle of the second week, and not another soul in the woods. Yeah. And so I don't know if that was just something different about that year where there wasn't very many people. The access to get into those places is definitely challenging. You have to hike a long way. Like going in by boat was definitely the most productive way. But, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of acres down there that...
But there's so many people doing that now, too. The whole boat thing, it's a mess.
Yeah.
But,
well,
I don't know. We'll be close to turkey season for a while.
Yeah, Steve Blake was telling me he didn't hear a gobble from the boat this past spring.
It's been rough.
So, kind of crazy. But anyway, yeah, so we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
We do.
Here in the next few months.
We do. We're in January right now.
Yeah.
I was out today on the lake busting ice.
Yeah.
And catching catfish.
Yep.
Spent about half of our time breaking the ice and then the other half fishing.
Yeah.
Which was okay.
Yeah.
We caught a good mess of fish, but it just took a long time to get rid of all the ice. But the bite's pretty good.
Did you were you able to catch fresh shad?
Yeah, and they were all about 1.5 pounds a piece. They were too big.
Wow.
Of course, we cut them, but they were great, big, giant, black, fat shad.
Yeah.
But the bait was easy and the bite was good.
Any big blue cats today?
No giants. We have one probably 18, 19 pounds.
Yeah.
No big overs, big slots.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of good eating size fish.
Yeah.
A lot of good eating size fish. So.
Well, now, contrary to what the general public tends to think, right now is freaking great time to be on the water.
Excellent time, yeah. And it's going to get better, too.
Yeah.
We get some of them days when the sun shines and the wind blows. That's going to get good. But
and that's not just for blues, that's crappie as well.
White bass.
Yeah.
White bass, they're going to be running here for too long. That's going to get real good.
And they'll run up into the creeks.
Yeah. Creeks and rivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're full of eggs right now.
No, the lake had been very low for quite some time. Now I think is it still a couple feet up?
708, 72, almost 3 feet. Yep.
Yeah, so just kind of funny. Truman Lake, just the way it
fluctuates. Yeah, that's one of those variables as time.
Yeah,
and it could change overnight.
Yeah, because we had all from the beginning of summer all the way through November, freaking almost 2 feet low.
That's been the beauty of guide life, for the last 20 some years I've been doing it. We didn't have the luxury of live scope where you see one and drop a jig on its head till it eats, and you had to fish.
Yeah.
And not that I'm against live scope.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it takes the fisherman out of fishing. It's a great tool. I think it's cool. I wish everybody had one on the nose of their boat, but it takes the fisherman out of fishing some. And that variable lake fluctuation was a huge factor, when it comes to fishing.
Right. Now you have the live. Is it live?
I have live sight right now.
But you're getting the
active target.
Active target. I was trying to remember what it was called.
Yep, active target, Lowrance, active target. Yeah, we're gonna strap that on the G3 and see what we can do. But as for now, we're still just going fishing.
Yeah. Freaking active target. I've only seen a few video clips, but it looks...
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait. It's extreme.
Yeah.
It's really super cool. I mean, these fish don't have nowhere to hide.
Right.
They can't hide now.
Right.
It's cool. It makes people really successful. and everything has its place, and a lot of the big controversies now. Everybody, they're gonna fish the lake out. It's gonna hurt the crappie population. It's not.
Yeah.
There's limits for a reason, and our regulations are set to protect our resource, and so I think we're gonna be all right.
Well, I don't know how they would estimate the population of crappie in Truman Lake, but it's
unreal. Got
to be. I don't know. Is in the millions? You think it's possible that it's in the millions?
Have to be.
Yeah,
it had to be.
That's unfreaking real.
Yeah.
I'd love to know. I was talking about that with David Ryan the other day. Like, I'd love to know the number of fish, every fish, spoonbill, carp, gar, catfish, in Truman Lake. Like, holy cow!
Blow your mind.
Yeah. And
then how far do you take Truman Lake?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
True. Because
Osage River runs all the way in Kansas.
Yeah.
Grand River runs all the way up.
Yeah.
That's Truman Lake.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So how far do you take it?
Yeah. Just a very interesting. Well, like a couple years ago in Jacomo, this was kind of interesting. In Lee Summit, little 900-acre lake, and back in the 60s and 70s, they'd stocked a weird number of spoonbill, like 23 or 24, random, right? There was some local fishery. A guy named Stephen Delgado is a local tournament fisherman in the bass fishing scene. Was fishing a Jacomo tournament. Comes up on this was in 2018. Comes up on a giant spoonbill. What could very likely have potentially been a state record fish. Well, guess when spoonbill were put in there? Freaking 60s, 70s, and there was 23 of them. Unless someone snagged one and let it go,
right.
which is a possibility.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of fascinating to think about some of that stuff.
They're so prehistoric. God knows how long they live.
Yeah. Here's what's crazy. That could very easily have been the oldest fish in the lake. Think about that.
Oh, yeah.
That's just something crazy. Because it's not like Truman where you'd have any number of oldest fish in the lake because there's so many spoonbill. Like, there was 23 spoonbill. That fish could have been the oldest one in the lake.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Just kind of wild. So, anyway. Well, I kind of want to save some topics for...
yeah, definitely. We don't want to give it all.
We're going to try to stay right around an hour for these, and we very likely could end up talking for a lot longer than that, especially when we get a guest on. Sure. But it's just kind of fun to talk hunting and fishing. This is just the first of many, and we'd love to take your guys' feedback as we put these out, what you want to see more of, less of, and if there's particular topics down the road that you think of. But we really just want to kind of get into talking, hunting, and fishing, and what the average guy is doing. I feel like we're kind of...
As this progresses, and we get in, and like I said, we keep moving forward, and we get the website built up where we can start taking some feedback. There's a chance later down the road we can start taking some call-ins and things like that, and start talking to you guys over the phone. Be on the show live. So. Well,
it's very likely because I don't know. Some of you out there might watch Joe Rogan podcast or the Stephen Marilla podcast, and they start YouTube live and they start going, and that's definitely something that we have in mind to take this. So really looking forward to it. We're sticking with it. It's the endless season outdoors podcast.
That's right.
Courtesy of Jeff Faulkenberry, and I'm Tyler Mahoney. We're looking forward to talking a whole bunch more here down the road. Thanks a bunch for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.